It started with games. Simple things. Pixels, buttons, a bit of fun. Then, somewhere along the way, the big platforms moved in. Last year, $200 billion flowed upwards, away from the people who actually play. This year, they take it back. YOM, where players play games straight from your PC, not a data center in Virginia. Meet Tyler Pemberton. Yes, this looks dramatic, but he's perfectly fine. Tyler's offline. His PC isn't. 47 players streaming from his GPU right now. Even AFK, Tyler's rig is pulling its weight. He's making money in his sleep. Maybe this is what happens when gamers finally take control of their own world. Turn your idle GPU into passive income. YOM.net. Eat, sleep, earn, repeat.
Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the show. All right, another town hall with YOM. I've got a special guest. I've got Tactical Investing, Alex, coming up on in a little bit to talk to us about his opportunity to run a node and see how how he's been doing it. He's been doing it for about 3 months with us. So I kind of want, let me get this in here closer. I want to get a kind of a read on how it's been going for him and how it feels to be running a node operating. But and then we'll talk a little bit about markets in general and just the state of the world. I think we'll probably get into a little bit of, as Alex pays attention to that in his, he's on X. You can find him at Tactical Invest, Tactical Invest _ We'll have the link below in the description. So welcome to another week. I want to bring up some stuff and we'll start sharing with the community like we normally do, how things are going with everyone and what it's looking like for our community. So, I usually start the stream with a little bit of, hey, this is what YOM does and everything. But now I'm realizing that the video, that the commercial, that we have at the beginning of the broadcast does a pretty good job explaining what we do. We help people who have a gaming rig at home earn passive income by putting their rig on our network and streaming games across our network to any URL inside of Discord, Telegram, through an ad service. So really just the best way to get AAA quality games to players because our system is decentralized and super cheap compared to a centralized system. So we've been doing really, really well. Like we've had community growth has been crazy. I think we're somewhere around 850,000 active community members now taking part in our quest and getting the word out there about YOM. We think that's a great thing, not just because they're going to be earning rewards, but also what we're developing here by allowing people to earn passive income with their equipment they own at home, and then allowing gamers to play these high quality games on their phones or on any device that has internet access. We just think this is great for the gaming industry. The idea that we can get more games in the hands of more players without the download and install friction and without the subscription fees of a massive data center or a massive service. We ultimately just think this is the way that the gaming industry booms, overall. And then the players themselves get to earn their keep. They get to earn a little bit by supporting gaming as an industry that everyone's so in love with. Let's go over and take a look at our community and see how it's been doing. We've had, I started tracking. EJ, I believe, has been at the top of the leaderboard, I want to say, for 4 weeks, I think. And I think some of these other top fives, they've been coming. But again, this is a week-to-week thing. So at the end of the week, it clears out and new people have the chance to go ahead and excel and earn those XP points. So it's not that it's cumulative, though over time we're seeing that EJ is really racking up the bulk. But we do appreciate it. He's doing his X account has just been doing the bulk of the work. I mean, just all kinds of great posts about what YOM is and what YOM brings to the world. So if you haven't followed EJ, I really strongly suggest that you do. It's EJ Meta X on X. Follow him. He's helpful for us, but he's also spreading the word about just like everybody else is on the leaderboard. So we do appreciate that. There has been questions about the leaderboard, and I want to address it as best I can. But of course, I don't want to give any false information, and I don't want to give any premature information. So people are asking, like, how much, what percentage of the community chest is going to be unlocked for rewards in this community push, and when are they going to get unlocked? These are all things we're still negotiating. When I say we're negotiating with a tier one exchange, there's actually multiple tier one exchanges, but they're pretty strident. So their starting point is you have to wait for 3 months to the cliff ends before the community tokens get unlocked. That's their starting point. Ours is obviously not that starting point, but we're negotiating with them, and we'll push back where we can push back, try to get the best deal for everybody. Obviously, 3 months is not a long-term hold when you talk about a project like ours, which has got, as I go into the potential for cloud gaming and what we're building, you realize that holding on 3 months is almost nothing. But again, we still like to reward the community as fast as possible. So we are looking at other ways. We're brainstorming in the studio, but other ways we can give rewards out or value out to our community members, short of that initial drop of tokens that may or may not come with TGE. And again, that question that question's inevitably going to come up too. When TGE? We haven't. Those negotiations are ongoing, and they're. I mean, they feel like they're getting closer to the end, but some of these tier ones are very, like I said, they're strident, and they've lasted this long because they can be so firm with their decision making. So we've got some pretty good negotiators on our side as well. So I'm not terribly worried that we're going to come to a solution that we're all going to be satisfied with. But it has not happened yet, and you would know if it had happened, because this whole town hall will be nothing but talking about TG and where we are and all the different details. So it's upcoming. Again, appreciate everybody in the community helping us spread the word, get more people on to follow our X account, and we'll see if we can help get people to follow your X account as well. Looking at the leaderboard, you should be following people on the leaderboard as well. Let's talk a little bit about the gaming industry and why I keep on saying we're so bullish on what we're offering the gaming industry, because another article dropped about cloud gaming and the potential that it has. So there's two of the articles, both came out in this open PR. I'm only going to hit the one, but again, they're talking about how all these major companies are getting into the cloud gaming space, and they think that because 5G is propagating and AI technology is helping out, they realize the cloud gaming market itself is just expected to boom in the next 5 years. The other article talked about a 51.74 compound annual growth rate over the next between now and 2033. So the next 7 years. This article is talking about the next 5 years. But I mean, it's just really expecting to be this exponential curve as more and more game developers and publishers realize they've got a bigger market in the mobile and in the omni-channel market. Omni-channel basically meaning you can play the game on your PC, and then you hit the road. You can take that same game experience and your same account and your progress. Take it on the phone while you get on your mass transit, or subway, that kind of thing, and still play the same game. You go to your friend's house, you can log in and play the same game on their TV through your phone. Like that idea of an omni game channel all through a single point of access, which is what we're offering, is it's just going to open up the opportunities for the gaming industry and publishers. This is just one more article that's talking about it. This article's talk was about how 5G makes it even easier too. But ultimately, everyone sees what's happening with the cloud gaming market, and it's actually probably this is the best time really to bring up Alex and talk to him about what he sees with if he's seeing the same thing, and then again we'll talk about owning a node. Hey Alex, how are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Very good, very good. So you saw my little intro there, I think, from off stage about the size of the cloud gaming market and everything that's kind of pointing in the direction of what we're building. But you're running a node now. How's it feel? About 3 months now.
Yeah, it's been 3 months. It's been nice. It's relatively quiet. It sits in its own little secluded corner, kind of doing its own thing. And it's just one of those things that, when you think of the idea of passive and something that's very simple to set up, not something you have to constantly monitor, it just kind of does its own thing. And, obviously, the nice thing about it is you can monitor it. If I want to scan the QR code, I can see all my node details. see, how many sessions, et cetera. So by far a very, very smooth process that I've not had any issues with.
And you do a lot with nodes of different networks, right? Different DePINs.
Yeah,
I don't need you don't need to compare and contrast. I certainly don't want you to slam anybody else.
sure.
But onboarding was just about as easy as any of the other ones then?
I would say the onboarding was fairly more simple, because what you'll see with a lot of different projects is they'll have their own like wallet account that they want to set up, right? Or a specific app that they want you to download that, a lot of times these projects will spend a lot of time on an app that the app is so buggy and has so many issues that when you're trying to set up your DePIN device, it almost disincentivizes you from setting it up, because the app itself that they spent money on trying to develop instead of developing the product itself still has issues. So I've seen this with a lot of projects, and not all of them are in one specific DePIN sector. Some of them are in, whether they're a vehicle DePIN device, whether they're a Wi-Fi DePIN device. There's been some that have been easier to set up, and then others that just you'd spend an hour or two trying to get set up, and then at that point you're just like, this isn't even worth it. So I think that's the one thing that setting up the YOM device, extremely simple, extremely proficient, and doing it, I think it was 5-6 minutes setting it all up. So it was fairly easy because all the work and expertise was done on the device, not trying to create an app that nobody really ended up liking to use anyways. So
yeah, that's going to make the tech team so happy to hear that you.
Yeah, I'm sure they will.
They did put a lot of work into it, to be fair. Now we're pretty far along with the alpha network. So by the time we got one over to you, I think we were pretty well shored up. But it's good to hear. Good to hear that it went well.
Yeah, and I think sometimes DePIN devices, DePIN projects, because they're so they run on the need to sell devices to operate as a company. They'll sometimes ship out a product that is not fully built out, because I think that was one thing that even by the time that I got my device, I wouldn't say it was delayed by the time that I got it, but I had to wait a little bit because you guys were wanting to make sure everything truly was built out, which, in hindsight, I was kind of like frustrated. I wanted to get my hands on the device. I was looking forward to it. I was eager, but at the same time, I knew when I got it, I wasn't going to have any issues with it. And, you have a lot of DePIN projects out there that try to get devices out there, and then after the fact, use their user base as kind of the test, the guinea pigs, and then try to push out update, and then try to push out another update, and then try to push out another update. And that, also just kind of gives a negative feeling to the entire environment.
Yeah, I mean, we had that opportunity to do something like that, and I think we wisely over a year ago said, no, let's just get some people from our community who are larger supporters, like they were very gung-ho, very bullish on what we were building. They could see the vision early on, and that's our alpha network. Those are our first 24 people to run nodes, and then it was after them that we reached out to you and a few others to say, hey, we think we're solid enough now to get you guys tested out. So we had that in front of us. It was tempting, right? But realizing that the small amount of money we could have made there would have done so much reputational harm to us, we're just not going to take that risk, right? It was better to us to just kind of work quietly in the background.
And then you have to have a whole customer service team of responding to all these tickets that people are putting together because they can't get a product that they expected to work. So
yeah, absolutely. So. Well, how about the larger DePIN market? And then the large crypto market? We'll take those in order. How is the DePIN market looking to you right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you kind of look at the DePIN market, you have to also, look at the crypto market as a whole. Unfortunately, we've seen a few DePIN projects have to, I've seen them post messages, and this is even broader than DePIN. We've seen crypto projects have to close doors, right? We saw this in 2022, 2023, and even further back. I don't think it was as public because everything kind of felt like a startup in 2016, 2017, anyways. But I feel like we're at a time where the projects that do have the meat, projects that have meat on the bone, that are more than just a flash in the pan, those are going to be the ones that are sustained, and those are the ones that preferably I would like to stack their native tokens while leading up to when the next bull market comes around. The perfect example I'll use of this is something like Helium, right? And Helium in 2020, when it launched, was at 25 cents. So those who got mining Helium very early, great concept, great everything. A lot of things were really good in the very beginning. And crypto as a whole wasn't at all-time highs. I mean, we're in 2020, still recovering. Bitcoin was at like $3,800 after the whole COVID crash. So, for people that looked at what are projects out there that have good potential, that have momentum, people that stacked Helium tokens, HNT tokens, when the bull market came around and Helium went to $50, they were obviously very, very rewarded for doing so, right? So I think for a lot of people, there's when I talk to people that are getting into the DePIN space, some are just getting in now, some have kind of seen a cycle go by, some have seen several cycles go by. And I think the same stays true, is looking at projects that are going to be here today, they're going to be here in 5 years from now, that aren't a flash in the pan, that have something that they're building out. And those are the ones that, if they're working passively behind you, there's not a huge energy draw. You don't have to worry about, a ton of energy consumption, running like an ASIC machine or something like that. And I think that's one of the beauties behind DePIN, is it's one of those things that you can accumulate over time. You don't have to like actively DCA in, as long as you have your device running and operational. And then when the bull market comes back around, now you've being able to reward yourself. May take a little bit of patience 2 years down the road, but you can enjoy the benefit of holding through.
Nice. And then, so for the whole market, I mean, it appears to be going sideways now.
Yeah.
And this might tie into what we started talking about off air about the world events.
Sure.
Are you worried? Are you cautiously optimistic? Where's your head at?
Yeah, I think if you look at when we take a look at Bitcoin as because Bitcoin's impacted by a lot of things outside of people, outside of price action, outside of technical analysis. So you look at macro factors, worldwide events that are going to cause a price reaction to Bitcoin. But then you also have to think about Bitcoin in the sense of how has Bitcoin historically performed, right? So when you look at Bitcoin right now, I'm still under the belief that we're under a 4-year cycle. It stayed true in the last cycle. It stayed true in the cycle before that. I do think that we peaked in 2025. I think 2026 is our version of 2022. We're already down from all-time highs of 124,000, 125,000, whatever we hit, down to 68,000. We're down about 50%, which is kind of where we were same time in 2022 when Bitcoin went from 69,000 in 2021 to like 35, 38,000. So I think that has all happened. And that is kind of in accordance with the Bitcoin cycle, right? Now, there were some outside events that further caused the capitulation aspect of Bitcoin to fall through the $30,000 level support, go all the way down to like 16.5. And that's when things bottomed out. And for a good period of time, a month or two, Bitcoin was stuck kind of around that 30 to 40K range. And I think we're at that range right now in the 60 to 70K range for Bitcoin, where we're going to be sideways for a little bit. But there's going to be some macro events that are going to happen that could cause Bitcoin to capitulate further when it's not really FUD, negative FUD, it's just reality, fear, uncertainty, and doubt about things happening around the world that I think could cause Bitcoin to go to 50,000. And I think in a worst case scenario, 30,000. I think 50,000 is really going to be the next level to pay attention to. But kind of like what we were talking about off air, you have a lot of things. Earlier today, you had the ruling on Trump tariffs being considered illegal. So you had a reaction there. I don't think it's as big. We can get into the weeds of it as to why not. But and then you have this whole situation right now going on with Iran, which, is I don't think enough people are paying attention to the scale of it. Kind of talked about this earlier. The expected scale of this is going to be greater than what we saw in Desert Storm. So, this isn't, I think most people, when they're thinking of that I mean, it's crazy to think about people that are 18 years old were born in like 2008. So they don't even know anything about, Desert Storm by any means. So for most people, they haven't ever seen a true war per se that's lasted longer than a couple of weeks. So the most thing that most people could probably compare to is the whole situation in Venezuela with the capture of Maduro happened in a couple of days. It was over. This is going to be, if it goes through, a multi-week, I mean, we're talking about 1 to 2 month event that is significantly greater than anything that most teenagers today have ever seen. So I think not enough people are paying attention to the scale of it. And the bigger question is, how fast does it ramp up? To what degree does this kind of involve other countries? We're already kind of seeing certain NATO countries say they're in, some are saying they're out. So I think it really just depends on the scale and the fallout that is going to happen, right? You look at Iran, is Hezbollah going to get involved? Is Israel going to get involved? Are all these other countries going to get involved? Or is this going to be, a very small kind of locally kept military? So that's kind of like the unknown, right? But I think there could be, if something like this falls out, right? And I've talked about this before in my channel, is Bitcoin for assets that people used as a haven for that saw assets as a safety haven, right? People typically look at gold, silver as a safety haven. And for some people, they started to see Bitcoin as that. I think a lot less people are going to look at Bitcoin in the same way if something like this falls out, due to the fact that Bitcoin is already down 50%. People have already lost money. A lot of people have lost money, especially when you look at what happened on October 10th, right? The largest liquidation event in crypto history. All these liquidation events that have happened, there's just not a lot of capital left out there for people to invest. And for when people look at their opportunities, do they invest in something like gold, which is up in over $5,000, having increased, more than doubled in the past year and a half, or do they invest in something that's down 60% from all-time highs, right? Even look at silver. So I think if all this falls out, people are going to have to start making decisions. I think there's going to be some cascading events. And I think there is going to be that level of capitulation where people are said, hey, I'm done. I'm ready to move on. I'm going to get into something else. And I don't think we've seen that yet for Bitcoin, unfortunately. And that's why I think we're going to go to 50,000. But the benefit to that is if you're running a DePIN device or you're involved in a network that really doesn't care so much about the price action of a crypto because you're there running a real world infrastructure. That's kind of the beauty of it. You don't necessarily have to be as bothered by price action.
Nice. And this is the kind of stuff you go over on your X channel, right? I mean, I'll play it real quick. You update how many times a day do you think you get an update out on tactical?
So on YouTube, I try to do as much as possible. Obviously with everything kind of being up tempo, because I'm still in the military, everything having been up tempo more recently, you just don't have as much time on your hands to create content and put together and do research and stuff like that. But typically I try to do, 3 to 4 times a week. But just came back from Alaska on a trip. And so, sometimes, certain priorities come first. So,
and the other thing I can't leave off too, people who've gone to some of the, token 2049 and those kind of events, they may recognize you because you've been inside of a ring, getting knocking some heads around. How much you talk about that? It's right there in your banner on your
So I've had 2 fights with Karate Combat as far as MMA promotion, and then I had my last I had a boxing debut, which in hindsight, it was an opportunity that presented itself, and I'm not one to typically say no to opportunities. And I don't regret doing it. I think, my biggest regret is when the individual I fought, his name is Barney. I had TKO'd him in Singapore in September of 24. And so he wanted a rematch, but that was in MMA, and I have the MMA experience. he has like 5 years of boxing experience. So he was kind of outside of his comfort zone. So when it was Crypto Fight Week that requested the rematch because he was their champion, for me to box him, I was like, all right, this is completely out of my realm. I've never boxed before. I've never done boxing training. And then on top of that, I had to drop another 15 pounds in 3 weeks to prepare. So, between learning how to box, dropping the 15 pounds on a short-term fight, and then traveling to Dubai, it was boxing is a very, very different animal compared to MMA.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, unfortunately, I lost in my boxing debut, but it was a fantastic time, fantastic opportunity. I think, at that point, Barney and I are 1-1. We both have wins against each other in respective combat sports. So we'll see if there is a trilogy in the works. We don't know exactly when that could happen, but yeah.
Importantly, whose portfolio performs better, his or yours? I mean,
I don't know. I mean, we could probably put that one together. He's a lot more into meme coins, which I don't dabble with a whole lot, but I think there's plenty of opportunities. I think it's one of those things that I think the biggest thing is you get out of your comfort zone, right? Boxing is not within my realm of expertise, but sometimes you got to push yourself out of your own shell. And kind of explore those new opportunities.
Yeah. I've done both of them as well. I prefer boxing myself, but
really?
MMA. Yeah, well, I did the jiu-jitsu for a while, but I just too fragile for having a big heavy guy land on me and just lay on me until I get tired. I get tired pretty quick when someone big and heavy is laying on me.
Yeah.
But I like both. I'll watch both, but if I'm going to do one of the two for exercise, I'll do boxing every time.
Yeah, I mean, even in karate combat, you don't have wrestling to any degree. You have takedowns. But for me, I come from a Taekwondo background, which uses both. Kicking is a huge portion of Taekwondo, and so when you take away, my biggest weapon essentially in that aspect, and you leave me with boxing and 3 weeks of learning how to box, because there's the setups that you have for boxing, the setups that you have for MMA, completely different. So it's definitely unique.
If it's between meme coins and DePINs, I think I'm going to always stay with DePIN. So I'm going to say your portfolio is doing
for sure.
All right. Hey, I wanted to leave some time to take. Is there anything else I should cover that you wanted to talk about from your side?
I'm trying to think. I think when it comes to the different opportunities in the gaming space, there's always new opportunities. I'm interested to see kind of how we've seen a huge growth in AI, right? AI, one way or another, having an impact in the world, right? I mean, it's one of the biggest sectors that's growing. Some of the biggest valuations given to private companies are all in the AI space. So, how would you think, Jeff, when you're looking at cloud gaming, kind of taking things on the next level of the gaming infrastructure, how do you see any form of AI being able to be intertwined in the gaming sector? And how would you see that, benefit maybe even cloud gaming?
Oh, yeah. Well, we use AI a lot in our development process for things like testing the network. We have, agents that go out and run games to run tests to make sure that we're not, losing latency or if we got a hole somewhere in the system. So it's good to have AI agents around to do that kind of level of testing. They also help each of our engineers has a suite of agents that helps them when they're problem solving. So as far as development goes, I expect you're going to see that the same thing in smart game developers will employ them. I've heard from some friends of mine who are like, still working in the gaming space. And they're like, yeah, our company doesn't allow you to use AI, which to me is crazy. Yeah. It just seems to me like you're asking someone to create a piece of art, but you're not letting them use a mouse, right?
Sure.
You can only use a pencil and pen to create art. It doesn't seem wise to my mind. But I think the smart studios are going to start using AI more and more. We obviously use it to also manage our network, our orchestrator that goes out and finds the node closest to you and it sets up your connection. That's all managed through a small set of AI agents, and I expect that's going to expand over time too as we take in more metrics. I think that the difficulty is going to become, and we're seeing it already, the amount of articles, you could probably just do a quick Google search and see data center causes outrage or causes people upset.
Yep.
Whenever they try to build a new one in here, and actually, I don't even know if you know about this, but not too far from me, not in the south of me, but I guess west of you,
Sure.
they're planning on building the largest natural gas power plant. And it's a town close by. A buddy of mine has a farm out in that area, so it's not very far from us. It's the largest one on the East Coast, largest natural gas power plant on the East Coast. But we're in rural South Carolina. Like, what's the possible need for that? Well, the speculation is they have to build that power plant so then they can build a data center. Otherwise, the data center they can attract the data centers to be built in the area after they've got the power to supply it.
Right.
Now, of course, the farmers in the area are all already outraged. The idea that the power plant itself is going to be natural gas that doesn't smell good. It's bad for the environment. Then you take the data center and put that there. It's going to sap the water supply that they're all using to feed their animals. Anyways, I think the problem that AI is going to have, and we're starting to see all the pushback on it already, is that the infrastructure to support it is going to be too expensive and too intrusive for local populations. Again, a reason why our DePIN is out there, or one of the things that justifies our building the way that we're building, is we don't require that data center. So if they want to do AI from those data centers, go ahead. We're not going to be drawing resources to do cloud gaming from any kind of large data center. We'll be pulling it from people's home systems that are sitting idle most of the time. So I think the AI is going to have the same scalable problems that centralized cloud gaming has. We can probably leverage our network to support AI computation as well at some point. I wouldn't be surprised if we start turning that way when we decide that I've got the game one under control. But right now we're trying to stay focused on the games. So
yeah, and I mean, even where here in Charleston, right, you have Google that has data centers. Google is expanding additional data centers here in Charleston. So they're expanding it, I think, by 3 or 4 more data centers, northwest. But yeah, like you said, there's tons of articles out there of people, because oftentimes data centers, you have these kind of contract deals where data centers will make this deal with the power company, and then oftentimes the fallout goes back to the retail, the individual homes that see their energy rates increase. Because they're having to give such a discount to these data centers to incentivize them to be there locally to capture their power, that it negatively impacts the electricity rates for everyone around them. So, you're starting to see this, like you said, a lot more often. And when you decentralize it and you have a decentralized network, you have cloud gaming, doesn't require to pull from those data centers. You have a true real world use case for product that counters the current issue that exists when it comes to gaming.
Yeah, I should list some numbers to you too, because I meant to bring this up earlier. So we've uploaded 2 more games onto our network. We've got 2 RTS games that are up now. One's called Zero AD, and the other's I keep on saying Wildfire, but it's not that. They're both RTSs, and we've had a couple play sessions from people out in the real world that went over 30 minutes. Their average latency time to the sessions was about 7 milliseconds, which is crazy fast, right?
Yeah.
I was telling a group earlier that 30 milliseconds is really, you have to get that, or else it's just not going to feel very good. You try to go faster, but the centralized data centers, they're having a time trying to get down to that 30 millisecond frame rate, and oftentimes it's just not there, which is most of the consternation from players is that they can't do that.
Right.
But we had a 7 millisecond 30-minute session of 2 of them, and it was coming from about 450 kilometers away. So it wasn't like it was right next door.
Yeah.
And in fact, the tech team gave me this map. Let me bring it up. This is just Europe because we're concentrated in Europe. But you can see the green dots are our nodes, and the red lines trace the players from the node to the players. So way up here,
that's crazy.
I don't know where that is. UK and Iceland was playing all the way down here in Spain. Right. So that's the kind of connection that you can get that are running at length. I don't know if these are chips out in the ocean. I actually don't. I got to ask some more questions about why we've got some of them out in the middle of the water. Could just be that it wasn't capturing an IP address. But it really has been, and this is 1 month's worth of data, so it wasn't. Didn't spend the whole thing. But I asked for in asking further questions about this. I said, well, 7 milliseconds does sound really good. And our CEO, Yori, was like, wait a minute, it's actually better than that. And I'll tell you why. He said, we've had some of our engineers can play from the, as they're building, they can play off of their own node. And that's about a 2 millisecond delay. But that's because they're in the same house. Well, that's impressive. But he says, so the other 5 milliseconds that's happening is coming from the distance between, 0 and 450 kilometers. So unless you're going to build a data, so distance, is provably a hindrance to latency, right? There's no way around it. That's just physics. So unless they're going to build a data center in every town around the world, they're never going to be able to scale up to allow the kind of absorption of user acquisition anywhere in the world. It has to be done at the local level. It has to be done from home game PCs. And that's what there was, I thought, some big learnings from us, from some of our testing, our early results.
Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of decentralized networks, right? Is you're able to reach places that normal large scale industries aren't able to do, or it's too financially burdensome for them to do it. And it's not as financially incentivization financially incentive. That's even the right term for it. But there's no financial incentive, right? Is like you have this random person out there. Are they really going to build a data center where there's not going to be a ton of exposure and spend millions and hundreds of millions of dollars to capture maybe a small pocket? But a decentralized network is still able to provide that individual the same value and the same services, regardless of, not nearly with the same capital. We were talking about a $300 device, not hundreds of millions of dollars.
All right. Yeah, it flips it on its head. I've said oftentimes, the people who are living like kind of where I am, I'm kind of out in a rural area. There's a couple of, Atlanta's not too far, Greenville's not too far, but I'm not right inside New York City. I could probably earn more from my node than someone inside New York City if there are, 12, 20, 50 other nodes in New York City. Actually, I guess it would take a lot more than that population wise. Anyways, it's a population density thing. Like, being in a rural area and running our node could be more profitable than being in a densely populated area running a node. So,
and even I've looked at my node, when looking at just total sessions served, right? Is right now I'm getting close, just in the last 30 days, about 20 sessions served with my node specifically, right? So, I think there's plenty of opportunities out there. I've had over almost 50 sessions so far.
This is the test network. This is before we deploy like a whole suite of games. Yeah,
correct. So, you can already see, it's not one of those things that, sometimes you'll see with like DePIN networks where you're build out, you'll set up your device, you'll spend, hours upon hours to set up a device. And I saw this with the Helium network as well. Sometimes it wasn't always the case, but you would set up a device and there would actually be no use case, right? There would be no one using it to offload data so it was just a standalone device that you were rewarded simply from having it online. It was never actually being used, right? And so you'd have a network, but no one would be using it. So there's really no value outside of you providing coverage for something that no one ever uses, right? So even prior to TGE, prior to this going full scale, you're already seeing, you can see, literally, I can see the sessions being had on the device, seeing sessions and seeing it actually being utilized. And I think that, from a node runner's perspective, if that's a term you want to use, it just makes you feel a lot better, right? It makes you feel like what you're doing is actually contributing, not you have this device that's been online, you spent hours to set it up, you spent hours to put the right antenna on there, and no one uses it, no one connects to it. And at that point, you're like, all of this was for nothing.
Right. Yep. I mean, that's kind of that. It seems like everything's working out, the way that we had plotted it out to work. So we'll see what happens. There are the nodes. So you got an early copy of it. The nodes are in pre-sale right now at Fresh Miners. People who are interested in the project could check it out. But of course, I encourage everybody to first do the rig check that's available through the app, because that's the other thing too. We're again, just to kind of show a little bit of our ethos, we didn't want to sell a bunch of nodes to people who can't operate them, like the computer can't run them because it's not the right GPU or they don't have enough bandwidth. So before you commit to buying one, please do run the rig check. Make sure that your system you plan on running it on is powerful enough to run it. We don't want to sell something and then, I mean, it's a little self-serving too, because we just don't want to deal with all the customer service or take back the device and have to return it. But ultimately, really, the network depends on people who want to get involved and are prepared to be involved, and they're getting rewarded for being involved. Right?
For sure.
All right, sweet. Well, that takes us about to the minute. So I should open up to some questions, because I know that people are going to have questions either for myself or Tactical Investing. I'm watching the question stream. I've already got a few people saying that they must have it a little bit later, but when TGE, guys, you will know TGE. You're going to know it because we'll be shouting it from the rooftop when we finally finalize all the contracts. But as I was saying at the very beginning of the podcast, the tier ones that we're negotiating with, they're very good at negotiating. They're very strident. They've got their rules. We have some things that we're trying to make sure that we can secure for our community. And part of it also is just finding the right combination of